Hello everyone, this is Ashley. Today's reading is going to be a collective reading. We're going to look at any themes that might be coming up during the Venus transit through the sign of Scorpio. Now that transit is spanning from September 10th through October 7th, I believe. I'll have the appropriate time designation in the description box down below. But Venus is a personal planet. She is the feminine aspect of everyone. So whether you're male or female, you have a Venus in your chart. And in the sign of Scorpio, she can be a bit interesting. She's least comfortable in Scorpio because it sits opposite to Taurus, her home sign. But there's a lot to be learned in the sign of Scorpio as it takes us quite a bit deeper into our Venusian themes. So money, relationships, our values, and how that interacts with other people on sometimes a deeply intimate level, which is Scorpio, right? So I thought we would do a collective on different themes that might be coming up that you will notice. Now, I went ahead and pre-shuffled and pulled some oracle cards, and we'll do some tarot, but a couple of Venus's larger transits that are happening in this time period are with the external universal planets, so the planets that impact everyone. And so it's actually kind of interesting because each one of those external planets is in retrograde. And as soon as Venus leaves Scorpio, they start switching to go direct in the month of October. And so Venus is getting a deep dive into her emotional world when it comes to, money, relationships, that kind of thing. And each one of these external planets activates another thing for her to consider. And so she'll square Saturn on the 17th. As I'm filming this, it's actually the 15th of September. And so you're probably already feeling this particular alignment. So she's going to square Saturn. And so that could bring up all kinds of challenges when it comes to finances, relationships, any of those Venus themes. Now, it could also be like you get saddled with a responsibility that you didn't want, or a bill pops up that you weren't expecting that you're forced to pay, or perhaps someone in a relationship with you, challenges you in some way. So there's a lot that can come up with Saturn in particular because Saturn is the taskmaster, the authority figure, could be a boss even that you are forced to interact with in a less than comfortable way, it being a square. On the 23rd, we have an opposition to Uranus, so some sort of surprise thing could come up in regards to relationships, money, values, that kind of thing. And it can kind of go either way with Uranus. It could be a shocking, great surprise, or it could be a shocking, difficult surprise. And so we'll kind of see if that comes through in the reading. On the 29th, we have a trine to Neptune. And to me, that feels like Venus is going to be able to release something. So she's spending all this time in Scorpio really deeply exploring herself. And Neptune gives us this ability to surrender something, to let go of something. So that'll be a nice alignment. A square to Jupiter takes place on the 30th. And with Jupiter, even though it's a square, Jupiter is the other benefic planet to Venus. So Venus and Jupiter are both benefic planets. So even a square between the two of them isn't usually that bad. So it could be that with some work, there is something positive that comes out of that square to Jupiter. And finally, just about a week before she moves into Sagittarius, she has a sextile to Pluto. So something about her values and her personal power is going to be transformed right before she enters Sagittarius. So that's just a real quick rundown of the major transits that Venus will encounter while in Scorpio. So let's go ahead and get into the reading and see what themes might come up. Now, I've purposely set the intention that it show the major themes, since this is a collective reading. So it certainly won't cover everything you'll experience, right? Especially depending on where Scorpio sits in your chart and where your Venus sits in your chart, because both will be activated as a result of this transit. So let's just kind of see what we get here, and we'll go through them one at a time. Okay, we have the Chariot, the Ace of Swords, the King of Swords, and the Eight of Pentacles. The Six of Swords, the Three of Swords, the Nine of Wands, and the Eight of Wands. And then finally, the Page of Wands, the Death card, the Lovers, and the the Knight of Cups. Now we do have the Ace of Cups at the bottom of the deck. So depending on where Venus sits in your natal chart and where Scorpio sits in your natal chart, it could be that such alignments are coming together to bring in new love for you, as Venus is all about love and relationships. So let's see what we get here. So with the first theme, we have bearing fruit. And this oracle card really just talks about something coming to fruition. So something you've been manifesting, beginning to show abundance. It's starting to grow. It may start to bear fruit. So you'll be able to see some sort of manifestation you've been working on come to fruition. With that oracle card, we're getting the Chariot, the Six of Swords, and the Page of Wands. Now, first off, Chariot, Six of Swords, someone here could easily be moving, like physically moving to a new home. Could be that an offer that you've put in on a home is accepted. Specifically with that Page of Wands there. But it just really, in general, just movement on some sort of inspirational idea that you began putting into the works and started to manifest for yourself. Yeah, a lot of travel potential here. let's see what other cards we get with this. And if it's not travel for you, it just feels like movement on something that perhaps you have been working towards. Definitely getting a lot of Cancer energy coming through. So definitely some additional wisdom gained from a new beginning that you've taken in the past. It's moving forward. You're starting to learn more about it. And it could also be that you are hit with some inspiration as far as what new beginning to move on. For example, if you are in a space where you're trying to make a decision about something, like what should I do, it looks like that inspiration is coming in. Now, it does feel like there's a little bit of fear coming in about perhaps moving on from something. Could be a relationship, a job, anything like that. But I do feel like even perhaps around the time of this full moon that's coming up on the 22nd, that there'll be more tools at your disposal to help you make that choice for yourself, whether or not to move on from something or not. And then I do feel like, so with this bearing fruit, I do feel like whatever inspired ideas you've had in the past, you've probably felt a little bit stuck on or not seeing the movement on some of that. And I think that that's going to take some slow, grounded steps forward. So you could start to see some manifestation of that in the physical as well. Interesting. So some things kind of coming forward, some movement. And the next theme we have signs. So signs, synchronicity, guidance from spirit, that sort of thing. And I do feel like that is more connected with that Neptune trine that we talked about. Neptune is all things spiritual. And it could be that you're able to release something because you receive some sort of information. And we do have the Ace of Swords here. So it could be some kind of truth or spark of intuition. This could also be the opposition that takes place with Uranus because of that spark of information. Uranus is the higher mind, the cosmic mind, and so you could receive like a download or a synchronicity that helps to guide you on something. Now we do have the Three of Swords and the Death card here. So it could very well be that, so if there's been a situation in the past where you've experienced some heartbreak, it looks like that's coming to an end. So again, with that Neptune trine, you could find it that it's easier to let go of something and allow it to transform. Now this Death card that's in this row is specifically related to Scorpio. So some sort of deeper understanding that you get could help you to release something as well. Because your Venus, your personal Venus, has been taking a trip through Scorpio, kind of gaining some additional understanding of something. Let's see what this, if we can get any more detail here. Okay, so definitely some incoming information. It could even be a little bit overwhelming with that Eight of Wands there, and could initially introduce some conflict within. It's like you discover something and maybe you don't like what you discover, right? It could also be like this breakthrough moment where you move away from some sort of drama or conflict that you've been experiencing. And we continue to have a lot of cards of movement here. So whether it's moving on from a relationship or a job, a home, what have you, you're kind of getting out of that conflict energy. Some of you may be struggling or feeling some struggle financially as well, or just having some conflict with your resources. Now, with Venus being in Scorpio, Scorpio is our relation to others. And so Venus in Scorpio would be like resources that we receive from other people. So it's like your pay at work or your pay for a service that you provide. Could also be like an inheritance or taxes, for example. So some definite money themes coming in here that could serve as a bit of a challenge. But what's really positive here is I think that deep reflection that takes place in the sign of Scorpio allows you to kind of move on. Like, that's a big theme that seems to be coming through towards a more positive, abundant, and joyful path here. So some sort of rebirth is taking place while Venus is in Scorpio. In the next theme, we have will. Now, it's kind of interesting because when I think of Venus, I don't really think of will, right? That's more of a Mars word. But you can see here, she's like, especially in this depiction, she's wearing a mask. She's got this dress of like deeper cosmic, it's like the stars in the night sky. And on either side of her, she has this curtain, and it's kind of like being pulled open. And so something I feel like is revealed. And when I saw this card pop out, it made me think of perhaps that interaction with Pluto, because Pluto is about will and personal power. And that sextile that's happening on the 2nd of October could easily expose perhaps some dynamics with your personal power and whether or not you're honoring your personal power. And oftentimes, Scorpio being ruled by Pluto, it's not until after a struggle that we recognize that we deserve more and that we are capable of more. Initially, when it happens, and that Pluto activates Venus, it'll feel like a fear comes up or a power struggle comes up. And it could be related to relationships, money, all those Venus themes. So we have the Knight of Swords, the Nine of Wands, and the Lovers. To me, this almost feels more like drama within a relationship here. And it's funny because when I put down this next oracle card, which is the Arrow, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment, I immediately thought of boundaries, and that is what the Nine of Wands is. This is like the wounded warrior energy. Typically, it's a warrior that stands guard with a wall of wands behind him, and he's persevering, but he's also guarded and protecting himself. He's setting a boundary. And with this Knight of Swords here, I kind of feel like perhaps there's a little bit of drama that's coming in that's going to test your boundaries and your personal power in a relationship dynamic. So let's see if we can get any other cards to help narrow that down. Depending on how this video does, I'll certainly do more. I had plans of doing a video on Mars in Libra, because Mars is another personal planet. Okay, so a few messages coming through here that are definitely Venus and Scorpio themes. The first thing I'm noticing here is like a seriously passionate, sexy connection with the Devil and the Ace of Wands here. Could definitely have a spark of some deep intimacy and passion with a lover. And with that Devil card there, it's like intense attraction, right? But something else I'm getting from this is that it could very well be that part of your willpower is being tested to remove yourself from an old toxic relationship with the Devil there. And so be prepared to be tested in that regard. It does look like something about this personal willpower is going to provide you with some victory over old drama, old heartbreak. So that's a positive for sure. And I think what's really lovely about this, you know how we were talking about boundaries, we have the King of Swords and the Star card. And so it's like really healing and setting boundaries. That King of Swords is straight up. Like, he communicates the boundaries and he honors them. And I think that somehow almost boosts personal power in such a way that it's healing to you. Not just that you're protected or more protected than before, but because you've set the boundary and you've kind of overcome and kind of honored that value for yourself. That in itself is healing, if that makes sense. All right, the last theme, we have the arrow, and it says surround yourself with protective energy. So more boundary type of theme here. We have the Eight of Pentacles, the Eight of Wands, and the Knight of Cups. Interesting. I kind of feel like, too, I mean, this could have to do with the workplace, something that you are learning. Specifically, could be education or just work. We also have the Eight of Wands again, so more movement, right? And then the Knight of Cups, some sort of love offer or offer of something that you love. Let's get more here, see how it ties in with that arrow. We have the Knight of Wands and the Empress, the World. So more travel energy there. I do feel like there's a love offer that's coming in that you've been waiting for. And it's interesting that this Knight of Cups specifically represents Scorpio. And so it could even be a really deep, intimate connection coming in that you and the other person is willing to work on. Now, when it comes to this Eight of Wands, kind of what I'm picking up here, there's again movement energy could actually be moving or traveling, and that's causing some stress. But part of why I feel like there's some mention of protective energy here, like boundaries, protecting yourself. If you are actually traveling, make sure you are protecting yourself. You know, we have how many different places in lockdown, there's travel restrictions, that kind of thing. And it could be stressing you out to even be considering needing to travel. So I think everything will be fine here as long as you protect yourself, however that works for you. So that's something coming through there. But I think also some things could be happening that are going so quickly that it's resulting in stress. And so I think one thing that needs to be on everyone's mind when Venus is in Scorpio is to not just set boundaries with others, but with self. So make sure you're doing plenty of self-care, particularly during this time. Like if you've had enough, take some time out, right? And with this Eight of Pentacles, we have the Knight of Wands and the Empress. I do feel like there's a lot of movement coming in on like this bearing fruit row. I feel like this is kind of a repeat of that energy. Something you've been working on that's been, you know, inspirational to you, and you've put in a lot of work into, I think it's going to result in some lovely abundance there. I also feel like you are showing up as attractive to others. And that's not surprising. With Venus in Scorpio, it's almost like everyone is attractive. And in a sultry way, right? Scorpio can be deeply kinky and wanting to kind of almost like remove boundaries if you get deep enough, right? So I do feel like there's some passion coming in. There could be a lot of themes of that because we've had it show up a few times. Like real passion, sexy interactions. And that is just kind of a normal reaction to Venus in Scorpio. I think it'll show up even stronger when Mars moves into Scorpio. But you could feel hotly pursued at this time. So keep that in mind. And that could be part of that boundary there. It could almost feel like you're trying to beat people off with a stick. And so definitely set your boundaries, protect yourself. When it comes to any sort of intimate connections, you know, make sure you are safe. And yeah, I mean, overall, I think there'll be some challenges, but it looks pretty good. I think that when all those planets go direct, those, you know, I call them external planets, is the planets that sit furthest out from the sun, so Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter. When those all begin to go direct, it's like Venus would have gone through another set of lessons leading into this next part of the year here, coming into the tail end, really, of 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mars at the same time. Now, something to keep in mind, Mars is also in his detriment in the sign of Libra. And Libra is ruled by Venus, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And so it'll be interesting after doing the Mars reading how the two are trying to play together to help each other out. Because Venus, like I said, doesn't do her best in Scorpio, and Mars doesn't do his best in Libra. And so it'll be interesting to see how Venus comes into play in Mars's reading. Because like I was saying, with this will card and even this boundaries, there's some Martian energy going on there, and Venus will have to tap into that and get help from Mars, just like Mars will need Venus's help. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, which is why I wanted to do a collective reading on it and see if any themes would come through that would be helpful for you during this time. So let me know what you think about this kind of reading. If this is something you would like to see in the future, I'll go ahead and do the Mars in Libra. And I was also thinking of doing one on the Mercury retrograde that's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks, to kind of give us some ideas of what that's going to bring up for us as a collective. So definitely leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And we'll see about whether we continue to do these types of readings in the future. And I appreciate your feedback and your time. I'll see you next one. Bye.